In my time as a voice actor, I have had the chance to meet some incredible people, people who inspire me, who challenge me, who help guide me in such unique and significant ways. I've mentioned many times that I've had a community of people walking alongside me. And when I found this community, that's when the whole thing changed for me. That's when I started getting more intentional. I felt like I had people who were supporting me as I was trying to support them. People who could be my cheerleader, who could be my coaches, who could be my peers, who that person you go and seek out at the water cooler just to be like, "Hey man, today's tough, isn't it?" And they're there to just gab with you and laugh with you and cry with you when things are down and celebrate with you when things are up. And I feel so incredibly fortunate to have found the community that I have. In today's episode of the podcast, I'm going to be interviewing Jenna Pinchbeck. She is a phenomenal voice actor who has offered me such unique and amazing tips, advice, support. She has thrown resources at me by the handful, like just dozens and dozens of things that have helped me get to a new level in this entire career and how I interact with it and how I feel around it. And I know I would not be where I'm at without the friendship and support that she has offered me. We had a long conversation. Like you sit down with any friend and you just start talking, you just start going. And it was very hard to stop when we finally did. So I want to give you an opportunity to hear some of the things we discussed about her journey, about the speed bumps along the way, the ways that she's felt like she's just been winging it. Because at the end of the day, that's what we all are kind of doing, more or less. So I'm going to, this is her. Huzzah.
I'm just kind of winging it.
How are you?
I'm
Hello.
good. How are you?
I'm swell. This is the weirdest thing for me to be doing something like this in this format. And
Really?
a little bit. Like I don't know, I like playing in the background to have a thing where I'm
Nah.
on the main stage and then to have people like yourself and everybody else who are like geeked that I'm doing this thing and like, yes, I want to be part of it. Like I'm like, why? Little old me, really?
I think every human being that is well feels that way. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Everyone that's not a sociopath always feels like, what? Wait, why me?
Yeah, I like that clarification. Everyone who's well. I want to be all cool and ask the questions, but I've got to exit full screen and then scroll down or scroll up. And it's just all in the recording now. Hang on, let me make this seem as casual as possible. Watch, this is the acting portion of this. How did you get involved? So, Jenna, tell me, how did you get involved in voiceover? And what's that experience been like for you?
Well, I come from a background of, well, first I want to say hi, thank you for having me. Second of all, I come from a background in theater. I started doing theater when I was 5, and just really stuck with it. I was a really bad student, and my teachers, my kindergarten teacher, Miss Udell, told my mother, try putting her on stage, see what happens. And it worked. Something about creating a story with people and having to be present and concentrate on many things at once, I think, was really helpful for me with my 5-year-old ADHD diagnosis. And
They gave you that at 5?
At 5.
Wow,
I was on
congrats.
Ritalin in kindergarten. It was really
Wow.
something. Good old 90s. But anyway, so it was so helpful to me. And I remember doing, it wasn't when I was 5. When I was 5, I was doing The Wizard of Oz and I was picking my nose on stage as a munchkin. But when I was Mr. Beaver in the community theater summer production of the Narnia, why can't I remember the name of it?
The Chronicles of?
The Chronicles
Comma
of
Narnia?
I was like, the Lost Wardrobe is not it.
What C.S. Lewis thing happened?
Yeah, well, the other side of the wardrobe didn't matter to me because I was Mr. Beaver.
Yes.
But that was the first time where like, we spent forever figuring out the story and then like, or learning our parts as kids. And then the last week it all comes together and you're like, that's what this is about. There's a whole, it all goes together. I didn't know. And it just like blew my mind and I was hooked. And so I was doing theater every second of my life, except for when I wasn't in band, until I went to college and then I got my degree in musical theater. And then I went and lived my life as a musical theater artist and theater artist in general, not always musical. And that was always the most important thing to me, but I also very much value just being a human that has thoughts and feelings that aren't about theater. So I was also a photographer and I was also a real estate agent and a bartender and well, and also those things you have to do to pay bills.
Yeah.
And so I had never fully 100% gone into my craft as a theater performer. And then when COVID hit, I, like everyone else, had to reassess my life. And I'd always, always, always wanted to do voiceover. And I never knew how. And everyone I spoke to, it kind of felt like it was this secret of how to get into it. Is very mysterious.
Mm-hmm.
And I met Laura Rondinella, Laura, a
Yes.
mutual friend. And Laura's already a friend of mine, but she had just posted her demo and I was like, where did you get it? How do I do it? And she was so helpful and kind and inviting, which is, I think, what I was missing from maybe like people that I had met in my past that I was hoping would, help me understand where to start. And so I took her advice and I worked with a coach in 2020 of December of 2020 and just applied what I've already been doing my whole life as an actor and to the microphone and to the voiceover industry. And I felt so thankful for all of my 30 plus years of experience because that gave me the freedom to focus my education on the technical side of things and the business side of things and so on and so forth. So I found it by way of theater, I suppose, but I was always a big cartoon kid, like cartoon adult as well. But
What's your
and
flavor? What's your choice one?
I mean, growing up, SpongeBob,
Heck yes.
100%,
Heck yes.
definitely. Seasons 1 through 8 are perfect. So yeah, I'd always wanted to do it, and then I finally started during 2020, and then just kind of like got my bearings until I went by choice of my real estate job letting me go in December of 2021. I went full time because I had no choice.
Yeah. Some people volunteer for this and others get voluntold that you're moving in this direction.
I like that. I was voluntold to jump and leap and search for a net. And thankfully, I found beautiful nets, many of them. So, yeah.
I love that
That's how it
because we have the mutual in Laura, apparently the Waymaker Rondinella.
That's right.
I did not realize that she was your gateway drug into this very addictive community.
She was the yes. She was the first person, like I said, that just like really helped lay the groundwork in a way that wasn't like wrapped up in that scarcity mindset that I think it's impossible not to have in theater because the opportunities are so few and far between and there's just not as much abundance. And so when I would meet a theater friend that had gotten a voiceover gig, they were so precious about it. And I hope they're not that way anymore. But Laura was not like that at all. Laura was just so open and kind and shared everything. And she was like, here's what you got to do. Here's who you got to talk to. Here's how I did this. Here's how I did that. And then like, once I was in it, before you and I got connected in this whole community that we're a part of, started thriving. It was just me and Laura, and a couple of folks coming in and out, from time to time, but it was really like Laura was my cubicle mate. And she really helped me get started. Yeah.
That's fantastic. Honestly, I love that. I feel like, one, I've become so close with this little community of people that we get to share space with and
Yeah.
share in victories and failures, not really failures, but like
Ups and downs,
struggles,
yeah.
hardships, the ups and downs.
Yeah.
And one, to learn that it's so, I didn't realize how recent that is for you because,
Yeah.
spoiler alert, you're freaking crushing it. Like, getting to see you is just like hype, hype, hype from here in the background, and it's great.
Thank
But just
you.
how open, like, you carry that same energy that you're saying Laura brought for you.
It's 100% how I was able to start.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have no time. I mean, I don't know if that makes sense, but I have no time for not helping. That's backwards, but it's true.
And so much within this industry has been upfront. Before I even got into this, I was told how supportive of a community voiceover is, how much
Yeah.
like you're gonna find people who will be like your best friends. And I knew that was true, but I also got a tremendous amount, like came across, I'm sure in a similar way to so many people who come into this, the I'm not going to say unimportant gatekeeping, but the type of gatekeeping that could be discouraging for somebody who's like, how do I dip my toe in? The
Yeah.
type that says, there's no option to dip. You're just going to go or you're not going to at all. And it's like easing into it, finding people who are supportive in the easing into it has been
Yeah.
just tremendously nice.
Yeah, I think dipping your I think getting in the shallow end is a healthy way for sure to do it.
Yeah. And when I first came in, it was like you're either going to sink the money into all the coaching, all the classes, all the things before you even pick up but the temptation of a new voiceover is always like, I want sparkly, shiny technology first.
Uh-huh.
So we end
Yeah.
up doing that. And then we're like, no, now I got this thing. I need to make all the other stuff match up. So
Right.
like good
Right.
information from all around, but I've loved the amount of just support within this community of saying, yeah, experiment around. Buy the thing if you want to buy the thing, but also take the class because you need it. And here's how you
Yes.
dabble here. Here's how you dabble there. Because I'd imagine most of the people in our group have probably put I don't know, this cart before that horse.
It's hard to
sometimes.
know which order to do things, and I'm a big believer in use what you got, upgrade when you can.
Yeah.
But um sometimes you got to upgrade before sometimes you don't got nothing.
Yeah. And that
And that's
and
okay.
And that's the thing that I think is coolest is like the feeling of, yeah, I have what I have and I'm going to try with what I got. Like
Yeah.
the feeling of you're okay to try. And if it
Mhm.
doesn't work out, it doesn't work out, but you
Mhm.
tried. Like that encouragement of trying, I think is the big thing that I felt was missing prior to this group.
Yes, I think the biggest hurdle is the doing. I mean, my first booth was an IKEA comforter strap nailed around a closet.
Yes. Love it. And mine's a PVC pipe thing
Yours
holding
is
up.
awesome. I love your booth.
Its current iteration I'm quite proud of, but
It's great.
yeah, its
And it
original
sounds so
version.
good.
In the past episode of the podcast, I shared a TikTok I did where I was so proud of this thing where I had gotten a hold of like mattress foam and cut it into squares because I was like, I see everybody with squares, not firm foam. So I cut them into squares and just started hanging them all over. And it was the most echoey, reverby, like it sounded
Oh man, I was
awful.
hoping that this mattress foam hack was good.
No, the mattress foam hack was terrible. But back
Oh.
then, Andrew did all that and was like, I'm a freaking professional. Like, this is good.
But our ears get better as we practice.
I agree.
Yeah, like
Because
we know
now I
what to
listen to
hear.
those recordings and I'm like, who is that guy? Who is that
Absolutely.
guy? But here's the
Yep.
kicker. I wound up getting a hold of, shortly after that, getting a hold of the moving blankets and put it up in that same room, took all that
Yeah.
foam down, and my demo is recorded in that room. And
Oh wow.
it's a competitive demo. It has booked me jobs. So it's like,
Absolutely.
yeah, like you don't need a ton of fancy expensive. By all
No.
means, get the fancy expensive, but throwing it together with elbow grease works.
That's right.
So I'm gonna pull up my questions really quick.
Okay.
Tell me about. And then I'm gonna re-maximize so it looks like we're having the most. I'm gonna edit this to where it looks like we're having the most fluid conversation. Like I
Oh,
didn't
it's
even.
so fluid. I'm
Yeah,
drenched.
honestly. So tell me about a time where you felt like you were, I don't know, winging it. It could have been this, it could have been something else. Like, what does winging it mean to you?
I mean, honestly, I feel I've been thinking about this since I said I want to do your podcast. I feel like I wing it with everything, which maybe isn't giving myself credit in some ways, but um, I am a Gemini and I have ADHD and I just kind of do things. Um, but I have to say that I think right now I'm in a very much in a winging it phase of my life where in 64 days, Matthew and I are going to move across the world. Um,
Ah!
so I kind of feel like I'm winging it currently. We are moving to Thailand in 64 days. And I am every day is just kind of like, okay, what do we need to do now? Uh,
I couldn't imagine being in that place of just like having the date of knowing like the countdown has begun. This is happening. Not just a like, and I know you guys have done so much to prepare for that, but I'm just
I
one,
mean,
congrats, I'm excited, and two, like you're getting to move somewhere cool, and I'm
I
excited for you.
we're gonna just build a weird voiceover compound retreat center.
I love it. Yes, please. I want to be there, eating the good food and
The
spending
good
time
food
in
with the good
spaces that
people.
aren't this.
I know, I know. Yeah, no, I very much feel like we're winging it right now. I mean, we have absolutely nothing planned for when we arrive. Like it's like
Wow.
we will find a place and then we will make it work. And I kind of I've moved around a pretty good bit in my life. Florida, Virginia, California, New York, Philadelphia. So I think I've and when I moved to Philly, it was very much that too. It was like, I want to leave New York. I'm going to go to Philadelphia. Oh, look, a cheese shop. Let's go in. I like cheese. Hi, I'd like to work here. I mean, I also had worked at a beer and cheese shop, but anyways, I say that just because I think because I've moved around a little bit of a healthy bit, I as an adult, I kind of feel like winging it works for me.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I'm not much of a planner.
I feel that. Hence me coming into this little interview where I was like, this morning I'm going to go ahead and write up some questions, send it over so she's got some time to think about this if that'll be helpful to her. Maybe people like that. I don't
Appreciate
know.
that.
So side note, like we're doing this and I'm going to share like the way you share with me. My wife and I for so long, I would say about 6 years of our marriage, we thought for sure we were going to be leaving all of this here and going to India. We thought we were going to be living, moving and living there because there were some amazing businesses that are working to towards the end of human trafficking in the area. So we were like,
Yeah.
we want to be part of that. Like, that's a big problem, sure. And
Oh,
we
that's
actually knew
amazing.
people, and it wasn't here. So we were like, let's go there. Like,
Yeah.
we like the idea of like traveling
Yeah.
and doing something new. Actually, this shirt, it says, "Real Men Empower Women," is from
Ooh.
that company who we were partnering with for so long. But long 6 years worth of life planning, figuring it out, setting it all up, paying off all of our debt so we could just pick up and go.
Mm.
Life dealt new cards, and in a similar way, COVID shook things up, and that was when we fully accepted and really got into the place of mourning that the thing we thought we were planning and setting up and going to go do, we're
Mm.
not going to go do. So we started
Mm.
figuring out how do we set up roots here, figure out what our family is going to do, and we're still exploring like what's that next big thing that's going to be our big goal motivation. So
Yeah.
for me, getting to hear that you're moving to Thailand is like so cool, like so cool. And I know the feeling, or I have from my side that perspective of the feeling of what it's like to think I'm going to drop everything I know here and
Mm.
I'm going to figure it out there. Because originally for us, we had that same plan of we were going to show up and not know exactly what we were going to do, but dang it, we're going to do it. So I
Yeah.
think there's just something unique in people who jump into big things like this that I'm like, what is the thing in us that pushes us towards, for a lack of other not cheesy things, like towards that kind of adventure?
Yeah. Yeah, that like the go button that we have.
That screams, I'm ready, fire, aim.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
That's,
Yeah,
yeah.
I don't know what it is. I don't know where it comes from, but I'm glad I got it, I guess.
It's taking you such interesting places because the transition from theater into musical, that's an obvious one.
Mhm.
And the drive of necessity to get into things like real estate or beer and cheese and all of those other jobs that you
Beer
had,
and
like
cheese, very lucrative.
very lucrative. I'm sure it's just like, please, these $2 an hour and give me tips as well.
Actually, my beer and cheese, there's this place called Astoria Beer and Cheese in Astoria, Queens, and that was one of the best jobs I've ever had. It was $9 an hour because it was a retail job technically, because
Okay.
it was a shop, but it was also a bar.
Oh, that's how you get them.
So it was $9 an hour plus tips. And I was like, and it closed at midnight, so I didn't have to be up until 5 a.m. It was great. I loved that job.
That's
It was a good spot.
You know, service industry gets a bad rap sometimes, but I feel like everybody needs a service industry of some sort or
Everyone
retail.
should work. Everyone should work in the service industry. Thank
If
you.
if you're wanting to get into voiceovers or wing it for anything, you better try out for service and retail first or alongside.
I think it makes people better humans.
Empathy,
But
you understand.
absolutely. And it makes you better human. It makes you better at multitasking. It makes you better at communicating. It makes you better at so many things. Hopefully eating good food. I mean, there's a lot of bad restaurants out there too, but
Yeah,
yeah, I
that's
think
true.
I can tell when a person has not.
They
I'm like,
usually
"Oh,
tip badly. They usually
they
tip
tip
quite
badly."
poorly.
Not all of them, I will say. I know some
Fair.
people who haven't, but I will say a lot of them, yeah, they tip badly or are not. One skill I'm very grateful for, which is very, like, random, is that I can carry a bunch of shit at once. And my booth is in my basement, so every morning I have to, like, "Okay, what am I gonna take down for the first half of my day?" I've got my water, I've got my coffee, I've got my cell phone, I've got am I gonna bring a snack? Is it gonna be a bowl of oatmeal? Is it gonna be toast? Is it gonna be both?
I got arms for everything.
And how can I carry all of it in one
That's
trip?
the classic grocery move of I'm
Yes,
making one trip and every bag is coming with me.
and you've got, like, the giant red marks on your arm.
Oh yes. Oh yes.
Yeah,
Nothing but lactic acid burning as
but
you
you did
go,
it
but
in
you're
one
like
trip. That's
one
all that
trip
matters.
goals.
One trip.
I still get compliments when I carry more than one plate and I do like put it in the hand and the little
Oh,
platform thing, plate sitting on top of it. I can carry 3 plates easily, 4 if I'm feeling real squirrely and there's not a lot of liquid.
my favorite is this 3-cup thing that not everyone
Yes.
can do for some reason, even though it's like cup holding 101.
Oh, I've
Um,
so my I do the big palm like 3 in one hand and
oh,
then 1 in the
nice.
hand.
That's
And
impressive.
I had somebody like frowny face me and was like, that's real dangerous because you're going to tumble one out. Like that guy's got no support. I was just like, you've never seen me carry cups because not a drop is hitting the floor. Side note, the one time I ever used a tray to carry the glasses,
Oh,
I absolutely spilt all over my
different
customer.
skill. Different
Very
skill.
different skill.
It's a it's a whole thing. Balance and
I can control this. I can't control something on top of this.
right, exactly.
Okay, I need to look at the next question. Looking. Total casual conversation. We're doing this. Wow, look at us. Just so smooth. This guy knows what he's doing. He's like a total professional, like that guy on Hot Ones. What is something you
He's totally winging it.
Yeah, and he does it so good. I freaking love that show.
He is chicken winging it.
That was so cheesy and I loved it. So, in the interest of winging it, whether that's moving to Thailand, starting your own frickin' business in voiceover, or even I'm sure on stage, a time or two, you had to find the line out of your brain and it's like, I'm gonna make this character happen. How do you experience and celebrate the wins when it comes to voiceover? Or not voiceover, but winging it. I know what I'm talking about.
Who? Well, we had this question when I was at the vocation conference a couple weeks ago. We were asked, how do we celebrate our wins? I mean, my answer was resting.
Mm.
I think that's the answer. But the word resting, I think, can mean many different things. It can mean going out to dinner. It can mean sleeping. It can mean, and I think this is ultimately the biggest reward that I've given myself is not waking up and immediately falling into like, okay, what do I have to do today? If I have a good like week or a win, then either like the next day or next Monday or next opportunity that I have to like start with maybe there's not a ton of stuff on my calendar, I can be like, I'm gonna have like if I sit on the couch during the day on a weekday, like wow, we're resting. Um And so I would say that, um, and also planning an adventure of some kind, if it's a camping trip or a, international trip. My partner and I go on a lot of international trips. We really prioritize travel, especially now that we can again. Um, but it's kind of the most one of the most important things to us. So, planning and resting are my rewards.
That's good. I love that because I love that rest really does show up in different ways. Like the simplicity of just sitting on the couch in the middle of a week. Self five on that, like those moments where those can hit. And
It feels so bougie to sit on a couch in like a Monday at noon.
doesn't it? Do you ever drive around and you're just like, or like in the middle of the week during normal work hours, you're
Sure.
driving somewhere and you look around and you're just like, why are there so many people out here? Go to work, you all. I'm in the middle. I got some, and you're like, well, but I'm out here. Yeah, it feels a little like that sometimes.
Yep, yep.
Rest is huge because, like, for
Yeah.
me, coming into this, at what point, I'll ask you this first before I go into my own little diatribe. At what point did you feel like this is my full-time job? It does not look like what I always thought full-time work, if this is even part of your story in the same way. I know for me, I came into this and I came from corporate. Like, I was a
Mhm.
corporate trainer. Then I worked as a preschool director in a very large church. And I came into this and was like, I don't have set hours. I'm not the classic 9 to 5. I'm not Monday through Friday. I kind of am on and off whenever I want to be on and off, or I
Yeah.
allow myself to be on and off. So, at what point did rest feel restful and not like a betrayal of, I should be doing something right now?
Oh, I think that's always a work in progress.
Yeah.
It's become more of a priority for me starting, I would say, in the second half of last year. I yeah, I would say that rest became a priority the second half of last year, 2022. But I will say that the first part of your question was when did full time uh yeah, the realization of the fact that like I am in control of my own hours and I am my own boss and I have to and I get to set my own parameters around what we're doing here. I definitely had I think a split feeling of excitement and possibility when I was uh let go, I guess, fired from my real estate job. I basically asked if I could go back to part-time and they said no. And so I said, okay, goodbye. Um,
Unconsciously uncoupled.
right, yeah. Um, when I walked away and I was like, okay, well, guess I'll make this work. Um, and so I put 400% of myself into it. I was getting up as early as I could. And sometimes I would stay in my old booth until, for 12 hours at a time. I didn't have a chair. I could barely like even fit in that space.
was gonna say,
And
it probably was not as fancy as what you're working with behind you. You are a regular, I don't know, I just feel good energies in the space you're in right now.
thank you. Well, it's funny that you say that because this used to be called the murder room. It was a really scary, creepy, tiny little room in the basement. But with marshals and a dream, you can achieve anything. But I realized that okay, I'm in charge. This is I'm gonna get out what I put in, and so I was also looking to folks who have found success for answers and parameters, and I kept hearing the numbers of anywhere between 30 to 50 auditions a day, and I was like, okay, let's go for it. And that's when everything changed. It's when I started doing 200, aiming for 200 auditions a week, and keeping track of my auditions. Uh,
Mm.
and by keeping track of them, I do not mean holding on to them. I mean just my little book. I'm sure I've showed it to you before. I don't know where it is. It's a little pink book. Oh, it's
Mhm.
literally right here. Um, it's my little tally book where all I did was write the time I got into the booth, the date, and where I auditioned, and how many. Just tallies, 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 tallies. That's all the book is
Mhm.
tallies. And that's when everything changed, and I was like, oh, this is measurable. Um, and, I'm not a math person, but this is pretty simple math. And I can say, oh, okay, I did X amount of auditions. My booking ratio is X. So if I do X amount of auditions, that equals, ideally, in a perfect world, X amount of jobs, which means that if I do X amount of auditions a day, I'm getting paid X amount if my average job is so on and so forth. So once I um shifted my mindset to that, then it kind of became a game of like, okay, how
Mm.
fast can I get? How good can I get? How can I self-direct myself? How can I get these auditions out in a way that feels good and natural, but also fast and um uh what's the word? Streamlined. Um yeah, so I think that was that was December 2021 um, that I really started trying to hit those numbers of 200 a week.
Yeah, where you're just like, you know what? I'm already kicking all the ass. I need to take all the names too.
Wasn't kicking much ass back then. I just was looking for butts to kick, I guess.
Quantifiables are so huge. There's a kind of
Yeah.
coming back to our boy C.S. Lewis with his lions and witches and wardrobes and whatnot. There's a quote of his that I still to this day am like cling to my brain as a guiding light for me in some ways, where it's like, it's so funny how day to day nothing is different, but when you look back, it's all changed. Like
Mm,
day to day, everything feels exactly the same. Like I'm going in, I'm hitting the nail on the head, but
mm,
tiny changes, tiny quantifiable measurements of you look back and suddenly you're like, everything's different than day one to now. And I
yeah.
know for me in voiceover, or anything really, like this guitar over here, picking that up, I'm better now than I was back then. But day to day, it's felt clunky and never really
Yeah.
felt different. But now I look back and I'm like, oh, I can actually play a couple chords.
Yes. Yes. Oh no, my whole life is different. My whole life is different.
And sometimes that's to the pleasant, and sometimes that's to the unpleasant.
Yeah, and I've experienced different places in my life where I'm like my whole life is different for the worse, and I'm very grateful right now that it's for the better.
So that does lead me into my next question that I don't remember the words of, but I'm going to look at just
Ah, I
here.
can't wait.
Oh, I'm not going to read it straight up because I want the video to look good. Hang on, let me memorize this. And I hope you realize I'm probably not going to edit this, and this is all going to be part of
I
it
hope
because that's
not.
my
I love it.
thing.
Show them how the pudding's made.
I love it. So what has helped you when winging it felt like it's too much, or you're absolutely like F this thing, or how did you persevere, or how did you decide, you know what? This wing ain't healing. I need to move on to the
Mm,
next thing.
mm. Yeah, I would say probably my choice to leave theater would be the because it was a choice to remove myself for sure. Um, before in 2019, I finally joined the Actors Equity the union. I was on track. I was, getting principal roles. I felt like I was kind of finding my footing. And also like as I was in my 20s and in college, like everybody was always like, "Oh, you're going to be so good when you're 40. Oh, you're going to be so good when you're 50."
It's always
So I was
just
like,
around the corner. Just keep going. Let's dangle this carrot more.
yeah. So I was like, okay, well, I'm 30 now and it's starting to happen. So maybe they're right. Now here I am and it's going and it's doing and then, the pandemic hit and I was feeling these feelings before the pandemic hit, but the pandemic just let me sit and reflect with my thoughts of the fact that in the theater industry, we are treated so poorly and paid so little. And in addition to that, so many, especially regional, well, not especially, but my experience is with regional theater. I've not been on Broadway, but it's just as prevalent there. But the problematic issues of every ism, every transphobia, homophobia, and everybody's always like, "What? It's theater." It's like, haha, funny.
Mm-hmm.
Look who runs it. So all of that really sat with me in a really deep way during the pandemic because I wasn't in it every day and I wasn't seeing all the good parts of theater every day. I wasn't having community. I wasn't creating. I wasn't, having all of those the positives every day. So I was able to really sit with a lot of the harm that was being done and talk to friends about, past experiences and how they're so thankful that they're not in those rooms anymore. And people just being more open in general about their experiences. I think people became very vulnerable and open during the pandemic and because of what we've all gone through collectively. So, yeah, I was winging it with my reaction to those feelings in that I started um, doing work to understand uh, how to potentially call in or out a certain theater in Philadelphia slash the oldest theater in America. Um, and one that I had worked at several times in different capacities that is just a really, really, really problematic space with problematic leadership, but the potential to be an incredible space. And so a group of friends and I were kind of working on from 2020 to 2021, kind of almost weekly sometimes, chatting about what we can do and how to make the space safer and how to have these discussions with these creepily powerful men. And that we just finally reached a point where it's like after talking to so many people who've already tried in the past, um, kind of learned that that's not really a possibility and that there is the having the conversation isn't going to bring forth any change. And especially having talked to people who had experienced some real harm that like uh, different iterations of communication that we had fleshed out weren't enough. And so then when it came time for them to announce their return season after COVID, I had, commented asking some questions on Instagram, saying, "Hey, what have you been doing the last 15 months to make your space safer for all of the people that feel harm in that space?"
Mm-hmm.
And I received a letter, a cease and desist letter from the theater. And then I got into a legal battle with the theater. And then I
Oh,
had a
wow.
protest. And we created a little organization and we tried to fix things. And it became my job. It became 100% my job but it wasn't my job. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it became my full-time experience of my life. Like everything else fell. And like this was summer of 2021, coming up on like the question that my real estate boss was like, "Are you coming back?" And so anyway, so I was I've never experienced anything like calling out an institution, much less one of the oldest theatrical institutions in the United States. And it was really terrible, but you know, we did a lot of things, but ultimately it became really, really, really awful of an experience as far as the people that we were trying to have a conversation with that refused to have a conversation with, that sent me the cease and desist. Unfortunately, it just became really just the entire experience became harmful, and emails and messages from folks who were supporting those men became too much for me to handle by myself / with the community I was working with. And I had to remove myself from theater as a kind of, unfortunately, as a whole, in order to just like get my mental health back to where it needed to be.
Yeah.
And that was when I made the conscious choice to not go back to real estate and to try voiceover, because there is so much of what I did love about performing that I get to do on my own without a creepy old man watching what I'm wearing or trying to get into my dressing room or things like that. So I would say that was one of those times where I was like really trying to do something and coming up against a thing, and like we really did try, and we did some good, and then it was like, okay, we all have to like take care of ourselves.
Yeah.
Move on.
Yeah. It's so important. And first, thank you for sharing all that. I know that is still not enjoyable or pleasant recounting of an experience that you had. So I know that's heavy. And I know that so personally too. Like, not specifically your circumstance, obviously, but it's so easy to relate to. Like I had mentioned, I had worked at a church prior to this, and
Yeah.
for me, getting out of that was, for me, I was wrapped up in that identity, that this is who I am, what I believe, what I stand on, and it's for people, all this stuff. And I genuinely believed that, wanted to believe, I should say, that the people who were in power, who had that voice, that platform, were aiming for the best for people, but they were going about it in all the wrong ways. So for me, I became that voice of, you know what? I know I don't agree with everything here, but I'm going to get this job and I'm going to do it to the best of my ability in order to be able to be a bringer of change to the narrative that I am seeing here.
Yeah.
And getting into conversations with people of like, okay, how were you hurt in this? And then peers of, this is what I believe about this topic, specifically the topic of homosexuality and transgenderism. And when it came down to it, I was the voice of the opposite end for the obvious reasons, like for the narrative of church things. But on one specific weekend, I was like, I can't support that you just brought an absolutely transphobic speaker onto stage and gave him a platform for your giant audience, because it is a pretty big place. So for me, that was pandemic. I think all of us get so focused, or were so focused on what we were doing and hitting that grind and doing the thing, that the pandemic was by no means, absolutely not even suggesting in the direction that it was a good thing, but it
Of course.
interrupted.
No.
It interrupted that moment. And the same thing happens to me to this day. My wife pops in on me when I'm in the middle of a big workflow and it interrupts my brain. I don't easily jump back in. I have to process what's suddenly happening around me. And when I get that moment to process around me, I can figure out like, okay, is the thing I'm working on actually beneficial to me, or was I just so hyper focused on it that I couldn't see anything
I relate to that.
So like, yeah, the pandemic interrupted that and said, you know what? You put in the work, but this isn't it. Like, you need to chase after the things that are important to you and the people who you love and the people who you want to support. So, Yeah,
Yeah.
hard.
Yeah.
Hard when that happens.
Yeah, and it's tough when you can see, like, I'm sure you saw the potential for good that that place could have done.
Yeah.
That's when it hurts, is when you can see, like, oh, so many people could be taken care of.
Yeah.
There's the resources are here, like, that's the other thing is, like, this institution is wealthy as can be and could be so much more wealthy if they didn't pay 2 men so much money. But that's when it's really hard, is like when you can see the potential for safety that
Mm. Yeah,
isn't, um yeah, it's heartbreaking.
for sure.
Yeah.
And the I won't say shameful, but I will say the part that continues reawakening and trying to you have to figure out how to digest again is the how do I not throw the baby out with the bathwater? How do I
Mm.
love the thing I've always loved and not hold that thing accountable to what these unenjoyable people have done?
Yeah, you don't want them to, like, I think about that all the time. Like, I'm like, "Oh, I stopped doing theater, they won." Like, "No.
They did not.
No, they did not win." And I get to perform every day, all day long now.
Heck yeah.
Yeah, and those people didn't win for you. You can create community. The way that you interact with human beings every day is more beneficial, I think, watching you interact with people than any church I've been to, that's for sure.
Hell yeah. And that's the side of it that I think is important for anybody who were winging it and found a thing that they loved and went into it and then realized like this is no longer the thing. There's an
Yeah.
amazing song by Garfunkel and Oates. Are you familiar with Garfunkel and Oates, the comedy music band?
No.
Oh my god, I highly recommend this song, but it's called Loser and it's my
Okay.
favorite of theirs. And the chorus, I don't think I'm big enough to get any sort of copyright issues, so I'm gonna do the thing, and if they sue me, I would love that. Uh, what is it?
You can use my lawyer.
It's you didn't read it, didn't do it, didn't reach your goal. Your heart is broken, you're an asshole. In the end, you didn't
Yeah.
have what it takes. So here's to you and your big mistakes. You're humiliated,
Yes.
something, something, and defeated. You were something in the race, and but it's like all about how who cares? You did the thing and you lost. But it's better to be a loser than a spectator.
Mm.
And like I've loved that song so much for
I can't
so
wait to
many
listen
years
to it.
now. It's catchy too. Um, I forget entirely. Like I love starting sentences, and then I'm like, wow, how'd I get here?
Oh, always, every day, all day long.
Yeah, absolutely. But to anybody who's been like winging it, knowing when you've hit that point is not easy.
Yeah.
But there's so much that can be on the other side of it. When you finally are able to give yourself that space to mourn the loss of that thing, because it very much is a death of sorts, like a thing that I was chasing after so hard
Yeah.
died. And I need
Yeah.
to mourn that like any loss and move forward. So much more joy is on the other side of it. For me, being in a space where people thought they knew the right way to do all the things, moving into this space where it's like, hey guys, life's hard. Let's do it all together because it's too hard to do it alone and I want to be there with you. Like this is so much nicer now.
Yeah.
And I would have never known the amount of just freedom to be myself and
Mhm.
joy that came along with that if I didn't make the switch, if I hadn't gotten that interruption that said like you're moving hard, interruption, change course. Like and that's I celebrate that every single day and the more I accept it, the more I feel in the right place.
Absolutely, and I think also too, we can take little bits of everything that we've done in the past, be it, maybe more traumatic situations like what we're talking about, or even like, for those of us that fucked around with sourdough during the pandemic, like there are so many things that we can take from those experiences with us that we learned that can help us do better in like new situations or in our next situation or in this situation or in this job or in this community or in this friendship. Like, um, so many things that we can take that are positives, and you kind of have to, because otherwise, like, what was it for?
Mm,
Um, Yeah.
So how's your sourdough now?
I got very, very good at it. I also and I wasn't on social media when I was doing it, so everyone was like, "Everyone's doing it." And I was like, "They are?"
This is a thing? Do you
I didn't
have
know.
do you have the mother yeast for me to be
I
able to do the thing?
Right, like, I didn't know this was a thing that people were doing all on Instagram. I don't I got like, I was totally off of it for, like, 9 months in 2020. Um, yeah, no, I haven't been making it, unfortunately, and this is another reason why we're moving. It's like, our life is not the balance is not there
Mm,
here. And I think a lot of it for me has to do with like because of all that happened in Philly and so many other things have happened in Philly, good and bad, but just right now I'm having a hard time seeing through the hurt.
yeah.
So my life feels very like here, whereas I'm hoping that in 64 days, well, definitely not then, but once we get settled, that I can
Mhm.
find some more time to do things like, and maybe it won't be sourdough, maybe it'll be ceramics or something. Um,
Ooh,
it's on my list.
yeah.
I've always painted ceramics, but I've always wanted to throw. So, anyways, I well, here I am now in the middle of my sentence. I what I'm trying to say is, um, I'm looking to slow down so that things like sourdough or whatever it is can come back into my life because I definitely think as humans we're supposed to be doing things like that. Making sourdough is very spiritual for me.
Mm,
Like ritualistic. I felt like I was getting back to the basics of what it meant to be a human.
yeah.
Yeah.
Folding dough,
Stretching, folding,
stretching all over
waiting.
itself.
Yeah.
You heard it here
Using
first,
your
folks.
hands.
You heard it here first. You stop making sourdough and suddenly you move out of the country.
That's
It's how
right.
it goes.
That's what
And then you
happens.
get to start something new.
Yes.
So first, thank you so much for sharing this time. That's what I'm supposed to do as an interviewer, right? Thank you so much for sharing. I genuinely mean
Oh,
it too.
it's my pleasure.
You are just one of my favorite people that I have met through this entire process, and you have been such a voice of support. It's the importance of feeling seen, right? Like I have
Mm.
never not felt seen, even when I first stepped into this group and I wanted to just awkwardly sit with my camera off and watch as you guys all talked, and I was nervous as anything. And at one point, I finally was like, I have to say something. I don't even remember what it was, but I remember you all were saying something, and I was like, actually, I need to say something here. Like, it was
Uh-huh.
something I just needed to contribute to
You
the
were just
conversation.
volleyballing with us. Yeah.
Yeah, and I was like, I need in this. And the second I did, I felt immediately welcomed. And some people, the second you start talking to them, you're like, I feel like I'm getting a hug right now. Am I getting a hug? This feels great.
Oh, you're gonna make me cry.
Oh, well, you're warm and cozy of a human, so
Thank you.
yes.
That means a
Um,
lot. This community that we've all created together, it's not by mine by any
for
means.
sure, yes.
I mean, at all, actually, it's Newton's. But what
And
we
I've
have
still not
created.
met Newton.
Oh, Dream, he's amazing. But it's something that I am grateful for every day. I still haven't had the emotional capacity to respond to the flag that I received because
Oh my god.
I
I'm I'm sitting here with mine and I'm like, where am I gonna hang it
I
that
know
I
I meant
cannot
to have
wait.
it hung by this interview, but I feel like it needs its own event. It's just such a special thing, and I'm so grateful for you joining the group. I feel like that was a pivot for us, and you've brought so many incredible people in,
Oh.
and it's just like it's the most beautiful community I've ever been a part of, and I'm
Oh
so
my god.
grateful.
Now you're gonna get me. Hang on.
How did we become so close on the internet? It's
I
weird.
I don't know. My internet friends are some of my best friends right now.
I know. Like I can't help it. It's just like we're having a good time.
We really are.
Yeah, and we're
Uh
learning so much from each other too.
oh my god, yeah. Like the space has just, yeah, be jealous everyone because this space is amazing. And by be jealous I mean reach out.
Send us a message and
Yeah, send
we
us
can
in. You're welcome. All are welcome here.
that's right.
So This is the shameless promotional plug for yourself, for the thousands of millions of people who are obviously listening to my podcast.
Obviously.
Totally hashtag sponsored. How can people find you if they choose to follow you, or what things? I don't know. I watch a lot of hot ones, so I'm like, this is your time. This camera, or this camera.
Okay,
Let the people know what you
camera
got going on.
Wait, I wish my remote was working because that would have been really funny. Um, I would say you can follow me on Instagram. That's kind of where I'm my most self. That's at JPBeckVO. Also TikTok, same handle. And my website is jennapinchbeck.com.
Wonderful.
For now, I might change it to JP Beck VO. I don't know. I'm going through a branding moment. I'm trying to figure it out. But I really like JP Beck.
When I first met you, I thought your name was JP, and then everybody kept saying Jenna, and I was like, who the fuck is Jenna?
Who is that?
Who's Jenna? I know JP.
Yeah, it's kind of where I'm leaning. JP Beck came out of that legal battle. Like a publicist friend of mine was like, you should probably change all your socials to something else.
Wow. Oh man, that's a part 2 we'll have to get someday.
Yeah, but I think I'm leaning into it. I think, another good thing that came out of a thing.
Well, I hope everybody who listens, if they are not already following you around on things, they need to. And if it is a company looking for that next voice, don't choose mine, or do choose mine, and choose hers.
Choose us together. We'll do one together.
You want more spitballing like what this was? We can deliver.
Yeah.
You want weird moments? We got weird moments too.
We can just do a nice little volley on whatever your product is.
Oh my gosh. Well, hey, I've taken up a good hour of your time, and this has been absolutely lovely for me. I thought I was nervous coming into it, but man, that warm hug is just continuous with you, and I love it. Like, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited.